From HanselMinutes.com, it's Hansel Minutes, a weekly discussion with web developer and technologist Scott Hanselman. This is Lawrence Ryan announcing show number 250, recorded live Thursday, January 20th, 2011. Support for Hansel Minutes is provided by Telerik RAD Controls, the most comprehensive suite of components for Windows Forms and ASP.NET web applications. Online at www.telerik.com. In this episode, Scott talks about technical presenting with Drew Robbins.
Hi, believe it or not, this is Scott Hanselman, and my voice is broken. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes. How's it going, everybody? We are at WebCamps in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I'm here with Drew Robbins. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. We're both a little tired.
Yeah. I've been talking for 8 hours straight, and my voice basically fell apart about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. Well, I tried to help you out with talking as much as possible, but it became apparent that people showed up to hear you. I was mentioned as the sidekick several times on Twitter.
I not me. I didn't say that. But they were like, yeah, Hanselman was great and the other guy.
That's right.
Yeah, we just came off of like literally, let me see, we got up at 6 this morning.
Yep.
And I got up at 4 a.m. the previous day, traveling, of course, all this way. And then we put together our WebCamps, James Senior's WebCamps. We are we're going to do Belgium in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And we ended up working, we were basically on stage talking from 9 a.m. till 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
And we did all the new stuff.
Yep.
So MVC3, NuGet, and all that.
That's right. And when we weren't on stage talking, you had a surrounding of people that you were answering questions to. So you didn't get any breaks, really.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And we had a lot of Diet Coke. And it was exhausting. I was mentioning to the guy who was very kind enough to drive us back here to the hotel. He's like, what's it like? How do you feel? Are you excited? And it's just like, I told him, I said, I don't think that people fully realize the complete fullness that you have to throw into something like that. I mean, you give your all.
Yeah.
And
the amount of energy that you have to sustain throughout the day
right.
to continue to present just drains the heck out of you.
Yeah. I mean, I could, we could phone it in. We could just sit and do the demos and have no energy at all. But we both want it to be good.
Right. Yeah.
And it's bizarre. I haven't done a full 8 hours at that energy level in a long time.
Right. Like trainers do that all the time, that work, every day and do 8 hours a day training people. And that's just, I can't imagine doing that.
I used to do training, like, years and years,
That's right,
classic ASP, like 10 years ago. And I almost interviewed a developmentor, but I just couldn't conceive of that energy output. Mm-hmm. Because some of the people just don't think of it as being a lot of work, a lot of energy. But, I've always, some people don't like my talks, they don't like my style, but I think of it as edutainment. So It's like a Vegas show with code and debugging and
right, yeah,
and zooming tools.
Yeah, that kind of becomes your unique thing because you have that kind of stand-up side of you as well. So you can intermix the like. There's some people, and I may be one of those, that try to intermix humor into presentations, and it just doesn't come off. And people are just like, you know what? Just give me the information, and we'll be fine. But you definitely have a good knack for introducing the humor into it. So.
I think I do, but I was funny. If you look at the comments on the ASP.NET MVC talk I did last year in Belgium, there were a bunch of comments on the Channel 9 site that were like, can I get a version with the jokes edited out?
I remember that. Yeah. I thought that was
felt really bad. I was like really sad.
It was a decent talk though. It was good.
It was okay. I mean, it's like some people think I'm doing the jokes because I'm a starving stand-up comedian or failed stand-up. But it's more just that I put on a talk that I would want to see. And I just cannot sit through an hour-long talk without fun.
Yeah.
I love listening to stories to talks where there are stories.
Yeah.
Like Mark Rasinovich and Rafael Lewicki and these guys that just, they tell a story And
Right.
then the code is kind of the side effect of that story. I love that.
Yep. It's a softer side of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a few there. What are some other speakers that you really enjoy listening to?
Billy Hollis.
Billy's great. Billy's like the Southern Baptist preacher presenter.
Yeah, and it's just I love speakers that have war stories. They're not just going through the demos. Like Richard Campbell has always got something where he'll just stop and tell you a story about what, and it might be a story of something that happened last week, but then he'll tie it back to whatever the code that he's talking about.
Yeah, Richard's a great storyteller as well.
Yeah. But this was actually our first time speaking together, you and I.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience for me.
We had kind of quasi practiced and talked about how we'd pass back and forth, and then we effectively just threw it out the window
Right.
as soon as we got on stage. Did that bother you? I mean, did you feel like, okay, I guess we're doing it this way?
I usually am always kind of just a solo act, and so I had never done demos under the pressure of interruptions and distractions, and it was pretty interesting trying to keep my mind on what I was supposed to do in the technical steps of the demo versus the talking back and forth.
Yeah, you were my code monkey for a number of demos, but this wasn't in the classic code monkey sense. This was in the Chris Sells, Don Box, Doug Purdy style of code monkey, which means you have to be insulted by the presenter.
You have to be witty with your replies
while simultaneously writing code.
Exactly. So, and it worked at times and not at others.
Yeah. So I was wondering if people would know if we were being silly or not, but I hope they did. We'll see when we look at the videotape later. But it's fun. You tease people when they're writing code about how their use of hotkeys or moving the mouse too slow.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
So I know that you may not think this, but there's a lot of people out there that really respect Scott Hanselman as the speaker and want to know, how do I become a better speaker? How do I become like Scott Hanselman and be a great presenter? So give people out there some advice of, I'm pretty sure just knowing you and knowing your background, there was no kind of classic speaker training for Scott Hanselman, but how do you get started as a speaker?
Well, I always talk about they did a lot of theater in high school.
So in some ways that was kind of classical training for being on stage.
Yeah. Not classical. Classical in that high school theater kind of way.
Oh, okay.
Classical in that it was musical theater. First you have to want to be on there, want to be upstage. And for me, it's about getting the energy, which is really ironic because I am extremely enervated right now, right? The opposite of energized. I have zero energy, which is funny because the audience was feeding me energy all day and I absorbed it and I was amped and stoked and excited. And then at the end, I just collapse.
Yeah.
And I come back on these trips and my wife looks at me and is like, why do you do this? And I was like, it's for the high. And she's like, you're so low though right now. What have you done? You have to want to feed on that. But this is what teachers do. You focus on a couple of people in the room, even though I think we had 300 people show up, 360 or something like that. I picked like 5 or 6 and I kept looking at them. Typically you want to pick somebody in each section of the room that you're going to look at. Mm-hmm. And ironically, if you mix it up enough, people around that person will think you're looking at them, right? So you'll literally will get a feeling that almost everyone in the room thinks that you've connected with them in some way. I usually just pick, unique looking people, whoever the most interesting looking person
Are they
is.
the people that are also kind of connecting with you and nodding and giving you kind of positive feedback to keep you going? Yeah.
Exactly. And they're usually awake. If they're the person who's awake, I don't look at the sleeping people.
So you didn't look at me today?
Well, there was this one guy. I didn't look at you because you were asleep most of the time. There was one guy who, when we asked, are there any Ruby people here? He said, I'm the Ruby guy.
Yeah.
So I started calling him Ruby guy because whenever I would refer to something that was of Ruby or Rails, I would say, Ruby guy likes that. So he was the guy in the left section that I would keep looking at. Yep. So at each section I could describe the person and what I associated with that person. Like I had a classic ASP guy in the back. I had a VB guy on the right. I had the .NET 2.0 guy in the middle, and I just would use those locations as spatial references. So that way I was consistent. I would always move to one side of the stage talking about one topic point and always move to the other or gesture in a certain way. That was something actually that Billy Hollis told me was associate different parts of the stage with different things. He was really good at this. He would like make the left side of the stage the client and the right side the server. And he was really consistent. Even though he didn't call it out, by him moving his body to that side when he was talking about different topics, it reinforced what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. So he would say like, let me step out of the box for a second and let me go over here and talk about the client. And then he'd do that and he would move always to the same location.
Right.
And then visually it would help you build the picture of whatever was the process that was going on was.
Yeah. You see some speakers at times they're moving around the stage, but it's accidental and it looks very random and it looks more nervous. Even if they aren't nervous, it looks nervous.
Yeah.
But the more intentional you can be and meaningful about movement, the better. Like definitely standing still is probably better than random movement, but having intentional movements is even better. So.
Really intentional anything. You don't want to do anything on stage when 300 people or 3,000 people are staring at you without knowing why you're doing it. Yeah. And if you have an affectation, which we all do, myself included, they're going to all notice that. But to your point about intentional movement, I learned that doing speaker training, actually, I did do some speaker training. Mm-hmm. If you move, they will look at you. If you stop moving, they'll look at your slides. If you turn slightly and turn your side to them, they will look at the slides. If you turn your body square and face them, they will look at you. So you can actually control what they're looking at. So you can like turn to the side and narrate, and then and you look up to the slides, and they will look up to the slides. Yep. So being aware of that kind of stuff makes a huge difference if your intent is to control the flow of information.
Yep. So what are the other factors in, maybe somebody is out and speaking to user groups or at these code camps and other regional community events, and they want to kind of break into larger events, whether it be the VS Lives or Dev Connections or some of the events that you do here in Europe that you've talked about, the Dev Days, and I'm trying to think of some of the others, but the larger events with a bigger audience, how do they break out of the kind of regional events and get into that? What other factors are involved?
In the new world, in the new internet, record your events. If you're going to talk to somebody, whether it's 10 people at a user group or 100 people at a code camp, record yourself. It's really difficult because there's really only 3 ways that I can hear about you as a speaker. Word of mouth, or someone sent me some list of reviews, like actual rolled up data that said you did a good job, or video. There's no other way for me to hear about how you did at an event. Send me video. If someone is saying, I want to come speak, I've spoken here, I've spoken there, that's great. But now what am I going to do? I'm going to go and ask somebody. If I know someone at the conference, hey, how did Drew do? Did he speak well? Honestly, I want to see a YouTube video, and not a cheesy guerrilla one where someone is wandering around following you, but like decent audio. Setting up a tripod and a little Bluetooth audio at a user group. For a while there, I was taping everything I did, not just because I wanted to promote what I was doing, but I wanted to look at it and get better.
Sure. Yeah.
So I would go and bring the video camera and record it. It's not hard.
And then you can take the best ones and post them out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If you gotta record yourself, because you never know when a video is going to turn out to be, the video, a good one. And actually, Paul, I think it was Paul Mooney taught me this when he started me doing this, because one time he came to a conference that I talked at Wintellect. It was at a Wintellect conference, and Paul brought a video camera, totally guerrilla style, and recorded my talk on social media for developers. And I was like, okay, Paul, that's cool. Thank you. But it was very guerrilla. He just sat there and he followed me. And I didn't really feel that the quality was very good, but he was so nice to have done it. He threw it up on the web and I threw it up on my blog. And even though it was awful quality, it is still to this day one of my most popular videos.
Wow. Yeah.
And Paul does this all the time. He's always recording videos. So then I said, I'm going to start doing this more formally. I'm going to take responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask the conference, would you please, record this? Or I'll take a flip camera and throw it on a tripod. Because, you might give 10 presentations before one of them is awesome. But when you get the awesome one, it proves that you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
It proves to yourself you can do it. And then you can go back and you can say, look, you see how that worked and that didn't?
Yep. You can ask yourself exactly like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And what do I need to do more of and less of?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Videotaping yourself is hard, but
watching
so
it is harder.
Oh God, watching it is the worst. I can't listen to myself. I don't know how you guys can stand me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I cannot hear myself speak.
Well, I certainly
present
can't hear myself speak when I sound like this.
Yeah.
I'm totally destroyed right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Like when you do have, every time I've seen you present, it's great. But I'm sure you have ones that you're less than happy with, different presentations.
Yeah.
What do you do to recover from those? And not only like kind of afterwards to, say, well, that was, not the best and I'll do better next time. But do you have techniques for recovering during a session? Because there's times that you just know it's going bad. You just feel it. You feel it,
Yeah. The bad ones hurt, they hurt, because you're just kicking yourself. It's usually stupid things that cause a bad thing, like not sleeping enough.
Mm-hmm.
Always nails me. It's really difficult to go to bed at 3 a.m. and then wake up and give a great talk at 9. So like here, even though I'm totally shattered, I thought it went okay because both of us were very conscious about our jet lag situation and when we went to sleep. And I got a full 8 hours before we talked. So that was great. Things that didn't go well today were as a result of prepping on some things and, over prepping in some instances and under prepping in others. So the talks that I've given that have gone poorly, are kind of follow a couple of classes of things that can go wrong. First is hardware. Nothing, nothing you can do about that, but have backups. So first I would carry multiple laptops.
Mm-hmm.
So for the longest time, I carried 2 laptops. That started to hurt. Now I carry 1 laptop and then 2 hard drives. So I have another entire hard drive.
Because it's the hard drive that's the most likely.
9 times out of 10, the hard drive will die. I actually had one situation where the LCD panel died, but I could just plug it into an external monitor and I was okay. But I actually have 2 hard drives with me today. I have an internal that I can literally swap out. It's a complete image and boot up and I'll be right back where I was. So literally we could have crashed. I would have replaced it during lunch and we'd be back up and no one would have bothered.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have an external hard drive where the worst case scenario would be I would go buy a hard drive and then maybe, restore a ghost image from that.
Hi, this is Scott coming to you from another place and time. Are you using agile practices to manage your software development? There's lots of tools on the market that manage the steps of a project, but most of them focus on individual roles. Get ready for a solution that caters for the success of the whole team. The guys at Telerik introduced Team Pulse. It's an agile project management tool that'll help you gather ideas, estimate, plan, track progress in a common workspace. Finally, companies, regardless of their size, can use a lightweight and convenient tool that makes all the stakeholders work as a united team, even if they're in different countries. By combining intuitive user interface and the power of Silverlight, Team Pulse removes the roadblocks that you typically face in applying Agile in an effective manner. No more lost data, no disparate systems, no lack of critical analytics regarding the health and velocity of your project. See for yourself. Get a free copy for 5 users and 1 project at Telerik.com/Team Pulse. And please do thank Telerik for supporting Hansel Minutes on their Facebook fan page, facebook.com/TELERIK. Telerik. We do appreciate it. There wouldn't be a Hansel Minutes if there wasn't Telerik helping us.
So hardware, backups. And then I have all the presentations, every single thing that we talked about is in Dropbox.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say my computer's dead, my hard drives are dead, my backup is dead. I get somebody else's machine and a fast internet connection, and I can bring it down in Dropbox in about 20 minutes, assuming they have like Visual Studio and the basics.
Sure.
So that's one thing. So being prepared for hardware failure is important. Being prepared for software failure is hard. And the only thing that I've found, and I'm interested in how you do it, is practice. the more stuff that goes wrong when you practice, it means that you'll have seen that already when it does go wrong live.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
There was a thing today where we had a really long hang, and it looked really bad. Well, it turned, and I was like, everyone was like, oh no, you know, this is some horrible thing is happening to the demo, and they've made a mistake and they've screwed up, and look, Internet Explorer has hung, Visual Studio's hung, it sucks. Well, it was actually that it was referring to a SQL Server name that was hard-coded in a web config file.
Yep.
And it didn't exist. And I knew that because when I saw it, I'd had it happen before, and I said to myself, clearly, the only thing that's going to cause me to hang that long is SQL Server trying to find a machine that's gone.
Right.
And I went right to it and I fixed it.
Yep.
But debugging that without it once happening.
Yeah, it was funny.
Would be
I had fixed that issue, by the way, on my laptop.
So you would have,
that didn't help out,
told
though.
me too. Yeah.
But yeah, there was another situation where it was just having gone through the steps several times, and being able to replay those quickly in your mind to realize that, okay, I just forgot step 3 in case of today, because I was having fun being interrupted by Scott, his jokes and stuff, which was fun. But
Yeah.
Being able to replay that quickly and say, okay, I had forgotten this step. Let's go fix it.
Yep.
And in some cases, those just become teaching moments themselves anyway. So,
I think it's okay for things to break on stage if you can recover and explain and make the breaking a learning experience.
yep.
So practice is the one thing. You cannot go over your demos too much.
Yep.
And really you can make mistakes speaking, but if your demo goes poorly, then it really, it undercuts the essence of everything that you're trying to do.
It gets uncomfortable very quick for the audience.
Well, yeah, unless it's part of your shtick. And sometimes, today, and part of my shtick is consciously making syntax errors. Mm-hmm. And this is actually a new thing I've been doing lately that a lot of people have not really know that I'm doing, is I'll make mistakes, put a curly brace somewhere and put a semicolon somewhere else. And then they'll start to yell out, hey, no, you got to do this. It's not going to compile or whatever. But that shows that they're paying attention.
Yep.
And they're engaged more, and they're stump Scott. So we had a couple of bugs and some goofy things that we were doing today that were on purpose, but it meant it was after lunch and it was fun and it made for a more engaged audience. So then they get to, see you goof up, and then they're involved in the fixing. But I don't know if I would recommend that for a beginner, because it's pretty subtle.
Yeah, it's
stuff.
It's tough, and it's tough to make it look honest that you meant to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, and if you do it long enough, then you can get away with it a little times, because an actual mistake you can say isn't.
You just recover from.
But yeah, I usually just throw 2 or 3 mistakes in every talk just to make sure that they're paying attention, and just because it's fun. Mm-hmm. So yeah, practice a lot. And then there's all the basic stuff that people forget that just kills me. I can't see your fonts; they're too small. You're trying to fit too much stuff in a PowerPoint. PowerPoint is not a Word document. Mm-hmm. And, if you say things like, well, you won't be able to see this, or you can't see this, but it says, then, zoom in, fix it. Also, the number one mistake is, slides as crutch, right? Don't read me your slides. I can read faster than you can speak, period. Mm-hmm. So if there's some quote or some, amazing quote by JFK that you want them to read, just shut up and let them read. Which brings me to the kind of the final really good tip that I learned about, is that silence is really important. And it's better for you to be quiet than say, Mm-hmm. Because even what you will perceive as being an incredibly long amount of silence, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, they won't notice. It sounds like a lot of time in your head when you
because
pause.
Everyone's staring at you. But
if you consciously replace the ums that you're going to say with silence, it'll sound really like.
Yeah, it goes back to that
very important.
pause. Think about the next thing you're going to say, and be intentional about it. So,
which gets to everything, right? Intentionality.
Yep.
Which is more of a skill than anything. I mean, you have to be conscious. And never have I and I'm not a good multitasker, but never have I multitasked than when I'm presenting, because you have words coming out of your mouth at the same exact time as your fingers are typing, at the same exact time as you're thinking of what to do next. I mean, it's a special kind of multitasking, but it is the only true multitasking that I think I'm able to do anymore.
Yeah.
Is do that.
Yeah. It takes a lot of practice. I mean, not just practicing demos, but just doing a lot of speaking. And we talked about this because, I've been at Microsoft, doing more management than out speaking lately, and just getting back out there in front of an audience can be rough at first. And so, it was much easier when I was out working for Microsoft in the field, presenting every week or even twice a week, to keep that skill up. But it's one of those things that the more you practice, the more often you do it, the better you get at it.
Well, that's a good point. Let's talk about this. So the last talk I did before this talk was my PDC presentation, which I thought, and this is just me personally, when I came away from it, it was one of the best talks I'd ever given.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, actually. I thought that's one of the best presentations I've seen Scott give.
Yeah. Not thinking about anyone else's presentations, but just my own. That was my personal best. I think it was 9 out of 10 that everything worked. And it was one of those things where everything just came together. The demos worked and the timing worked, and I stuck the landing, and it was live and it was streaming, and it was just great. And I haven't talked since then. So that's October, November, December, January. So what was I saying to you on the train as we were coming over here?
You were nervous that you could live up to your last presentation.
Yeah, I was a mess.
Yep.
From the moment I got off the plane, for the last 2 days hanging out with you.
Right.
We've been wandering the streets of Amsterdam, talking about everything, and then always coming back to this is going to be awful.
Nervous, yeah.
We're totally screwed.
Yep. You were pretty nervous before the PDC session too, though. I remember that talking to you.
Really?
And yeah, you
I
were
don't even remember. I was
nervous about timings, nervous about,
yeah.
I think, and that's another thing that I think people have a impression that Scott Hanselman doesn't get nervous before he goes on stage.
James Sr. knows that I am a nervous wreck.
Right.
I am a 14-year-old girl for 2 days before these things. It is just awful.
Yep.
And then the second you get on stage, you just forget that stuff.
Adrenaline rush. Take the energy in.
Totally.
Yep.
So the argument that you don't get nervous. I mean, you get it's a different kind of nervous. It's not like butterflies nervous about the basic execution. I know I can speak on stage. I just don't know what's going to come out of my head.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be able to be. And then I've also got the additional problem of diabetes. So you probably noticed towards the end of the day today, I was checking my blood sugar.
Yeah.
While speaking and typing.
I was going to tell you
4 times.
If you catch me at the right moment, the sight of blood will turn me white.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
I'm sorry.
You had all of a sudden right in front of me, because you were trying to hide it behind a laptop, pricked your finger and tested your blood sugar. And I was like, okay, I'm okay.
Oh, I didn't know you had that. Yeah. Some people will just go out with blood.
Yeah. I don't know why. It's
a thing people have. But yeah, so sometimes people will see me checking what they think is my pager.
Yep.
It's my insulin pump. And I'll actually find a portion of the talk where I don't have to hit the keyboard for a while, and I'll literally just keep talking without missing a beat while checking my blood sugar.
Yep.
And then, drinking an orange juice or whatever to keep from falling over.
Yeah, you didn't miss a beat. Yeah. Prick finger, put it on the little strip, and then check the number, and then you're back to, yeah.
I always compare speaking under pressure like this to because I'm all about analogies, right? And I throw analogies at the wall like spaghetti, and hoping that some of them will stick. And but one of the one is that there's an analogy right there. It's speaking is like when you're a little kid, like 8 or 9 or 10, and you're running downhill as fast as you can, downhill. And you're going so fast, faster than your feet have ever gone because you're running downhill. But if you think about your feet for a second, you're going to miss a step and you're going to just spill.
Right.
So you have to think about not thinking about your feet so that you don't fall.
Right. Yeah.
So you need to concentrate, but it's like a Zen thing. It's concentrating on not concentrating.
Yeah.
You need to be absolutely intentional and think about every single aspect of what you're doing, from your breathing to how wet your mouth is, to where if you got boogers in your nose, and what your demos are doing, all that, without overthinking it.
Uh-huh.
Because if you do, you're going to think about your feet, and then
very
you're
true.
going to totally fall over.
Yep.
So that's the Zen place you have to get, to think about everything and nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean?
I've always thought about it as trying to, I'm treading water and I'm trying to keep my head above water. And if a session's going well, I'm doing fine, keeping my head above water.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I get below, I start to panic.
Yeah.
And then, the panic sets in and the session just starts to go south. But
When that gets to your question that I'm not sure I really answered about, like when you're down,
how do you recover?
how do you recover? I don't know, man. I mean, you hear about I hear about stand-up comedians. Like they bomb. Bombing means that you just did horribly.
Uh-huh.
They bomb like night after night after night. And I think that you keep going up there because you know one day you won't.
Mm-hmm.
And I bomb. I tell jokes that don't go over, or I do demos that don't work or whatever. And you just hope that that's not the one that's filmed, and that's not the one that is live streamed.
The one that's remembered.
Yeah. But as far as like tips and tricks, there's no tricks that I mean, we don't put in tricks to make demos work.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like cheat or everything we're doing is real. You'll hard code the occasional XML file, but you're not going to cheat in any major way.
Yeah.
Because that would be, that wouldn't be a demo then. That would just be watching a slide of pictures of things happening. Yeah. But, preparation, I think, is the thing. I probably spend a week on and off getting a good hour and a half, 2 hour demo working.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that James Sr., who put together the WebCamps content, just spent months getting it perfect. And not only did he do that, but he also made content that could be given to other people to present, which is even harder.
Yeah, I was going to say, preparing demos for other people to present and trying to handle every random thing that they might do.
Yeah.
It's pretty difficult as well.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
He's actually come up with a really nice format, though, that I'm starting to use as well, where he makes this landscape page, and he's got pros on the far left column, steps in boldface in the middle, and then a screenshot of what you should be looking at on the right.
Yep.
It's a really great thing. He says he actually has a service that does that for him. So he'll record the presentation, and then he'll send it to the service. They'll write everything up that he wrote, that he did. So it's like a code presentation transcription service.
Yeah. I know that it's just a consulting company that we use.
You need to hook me up, because I want to have them do that with my talks.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, I didn't even know that existed
They
until
build
I saw him do that.
build our demos. We come up, kind of conceptualize it, and then they'll go and do the coding for us, and they'll break it down and script it. And for the talking points, rather than us going and typing them in for them, we'll just go through the demo, say what we want to say, so it's more natural, and then they'll record that into the pros.
See, I've never, in 10 years of doing this, I've never done that. I never even thought about that. I break things down like a short story. I think about what am I trying to accomplish in the next hour. I break it up in 10-minute chunks, and I have a peak or kind of a crescendo somewhere around the middle or 3/4 of the way through. And I think about just like classic 8th grade English. Here's my thesis. Say what I'm going to say it. What did I just say? Mm-hmm. I just kind of do that and repeat. But if I started doing presentations for other people that I would give, I would definitely want to use a transcription service. How do people break into it and move into the big stuff? Nail it down at the local code camps and the local things, the 100-person events, and also speak anywhere. One of the things that's actually funny is that people don't realize that there's other places to speak and other opportunities. That, for example, like with me, they won't see me because I'm speaking at events that they wouldn't go to. Mm-hmm. Like next month, we've got MVP Summit, but I'm going to actually run down to LA and speak at a interior decorators blogger summit. And I'm doing it for free, but I want the practice.
Right. And it's this kind of other expertise that you have, which is having a great blog.
Right.
And so you can take that to anywhere.
And I do talks. I'm doing a talk at Intel to their Agile conference, and I'm doing non-Microsoft stuff, right? Stuff on the side. I'm going to talk about being effective versus being efficient and information overload. And I'll do that. And like this thing, this interior decorators thing, they heard I gave a good talk at this conference for called Blogging While Brown. It's for bloggers of color. And someone saw me there and they said, "Oh, well, you should come to Blog World." And I went to Blog World, and these fit in with my existing job, and it gives me an opportunity to practice. So, for example, they don't pay these little gigs. They'll pay for the flight. So they'll fly me to LA that morning. I'll practice by giving a talk to these interior decorators. And then I'll come up to Seattle, and then I'll give the MVP Summit, and I'll be warmed up, as it were. That's an example. I speak at like Portland Community College or local colleges, local user groups that I'm not blogging about, that I'm off at such and such. I spoke in Eugene, Oregon, a little town in Oregon. It's like a 3-hour drive. They invited me down. They said they would give me tacos. So they bought me tacos, and I drove down and I gave a talk. But that's how you kind of keep.
That's one of the secrets, isn't it?
Yeah,
Scott will do anything for tacos.
That is a secret. But I think the actual secret is, though, that for every big talk, I guess what I'm saying is you can't be expected to not speak for 3 months and then go to a code camp and be awesome and nail it.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be doing this, like, think about it in the terms of the comedian. You got to do the small clubs, and you got to do it all the time. And there's enough stuff going on out there. Like, everyone's like, "Why are you speaking at an interior decorators conference?" Well, because it's sharpen the saw. Where else am I going to talk?
Yep.
Whether it's a user group or MVP Summit or any opportunity. I've spoken at small financial services companies on how to use Twitter and things like that. Anywhere that you can talk to a different kind of person. I've talked to like old people in suits where I had to wear a suit, and I've talked to, whatever.
Right.
Any opportunity to speak.
Well, you have an arsenal of things that you pull out and use on stage, like your analogies and other stories that you tell. And those stories, often the unique ones, the new ones, come up because you put yourself in a different situation, and then you told it worked,
and you hold on
and you
to
put it in. Yeah, you put it in the safe for using later. So.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's it, really. I mean, it's sharpen the saw. Practice as much as you can. Talk to anybody whenever you can. Take any opportunity. Talk to 10 people and have a luncheon. Talk to 1,000 people at a conference. When you do it, record yourself. When you present, be prepared. Be prepared about what you're going to say. Don't memorize it, but know your stuff backwards and forwards. Do your demos at least 10 times. I do most of mine 20 or more, right? You went through the demos over and over and over and over again. And still things went wrong.
Yep.
But the things that went wrong, we'd seen before, and we knew what to do about it.
Right.
And then wake up the next morning and do it all again.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I'm going to pass out now.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Is that cool? You're going to pass out too?
I think so. I think it's time.
All right. It's bedtime out here in the Netherlands. We will see you again next week. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes.